Hello and welcome to this short video on sight reading, two words which will appear in music exams and also for some reason causes quite a bit of confusion and trepidation among musicians. Of course, like any aspect of musicianship, sight reading will improve through practice, but only good practice, practice which is effective. So I hope these short little tips will help you improve your own sight reading practice. We'll take each word in turn. We'll start with sight. Sight reading. Reading a piece of music for the first time. Now this is not to be confused with playing the note for the first time as a physical kinesthetic movement on your instrument. It is not about seeing a note, knowing it's an F sharp, putting your second valve down or your second position on the trombone and playing it without any reference to what that note sounds like. So sight and sound must come hand in hand. They must be paired together very strongly. So your first challenge in sight reading is seeing the note and then hearing that note in your head, internalizing that sound, not only on its own, but it's in relationship to the notes that may come before it and the notes after it, and the scale or the mode that you may be in. And the second word, reading, is very much like reading a book. But as musicians, we have to multitask. We have to read the note, understand what that note is called, make a decision about where it is in the scale, put a slide position in the right place or a valve position in the right place, and then produce that note through physical manipulation of your embouchure and breathing and tonguing. So there's so many aspects, and this is where young players fall down. And they fall down because they have so many things to think about. So we're going to attempt to break these different building blocks down into their separate elements. So let's take this piece of music, this simple 4-bar phrase. Let's look at the first note. We noted the key signature, and the first task is to note where the first note, your F sharp, is within the key signature, and knowing your intervals are important. So I know this is the third note of the scale. So I'll try and internalize that sound in my head. I'll make sure I'm clear about what that third is and where the second note is in relation and so on. So my first task is to sing the phrase in my head. My second job is to sing that phrase externally, to sing it out loud, and then to add either the valves or the slide positions. So that kinesthetic movement, that link between you singing and moving the valves together, is sometimes why we split or clip a note, because those two actions are not aligned correctly. And the last job, of course, is to play the phrase. So we know what the notes are called, we hear them clearly, we know the kinesthetic, physical movement of the valves or the slide or the keys. What we can do now is when we play those notes, we can check that what we are playing is exactly the same as what we've heard in your head. And you'll be surprised, most musicians can actually sing in tune more successfully than they sometimes play their instruments. So this will really help with your intonation and accuracy when you're playing your instrument. And there's one strange thing you'll notice when you're reading, if you analyze it, and you can see this by looking very closely into someone else's eyes, very closely, when they're reading a book or reading a piece of music, and you'll see two things happen. You might expect that our eyes will be in one constant movement. Well, they're not. They're in short shuttering motions that flick back and forward, interspersed with these tiny fixations on the notes which you are seeing at the time and slightly in the future. And by slowing that process down of these shuttered movements and these fixations, by slowing your sight reading down, you start to improve that process of being able to sight read successfully. So again, to recap, see the phrase, hear the phrase, sing the phrase, feel the phrase with the valves or your slide, and then you have a fighting chance of using that knowledge and those little building blocks to play the phrase successfully for the first time. I hope that's helped. I hope the article helps you, and good luck with your sight reading.